Hello everyone, it's your Drive Time with Kathy Barnette, and we're going to do an update on Donald Trump's cabinet picks. Yes, it's that time again for us to get informed about what our government is up to. So here we go. So we're still out on who the State Department, Secretary of the State Department is going to be. Right now, we've added a third contender, right? We've been talking the past several weeks about Mitt Romney, the former Massachusetts governor, as well as former presidential candidate. We've talked about Rudy Giuliani, who threw his own name into the hat. And now there are whispers about retired General David Petraeus. You guys may remember him. He's the former CIA director. He's also the one who admitted guilt to leaking information, sharing secret information. And he was forced to retire. So that is the third name that's been added to the box. However, if you go out to my Facebook page, I've kind of written extensively about Petraeus as a serious consideration for the Secretary of State. And I do not believe that he is a serious consideration for this position. If you remember, well, first and foremost, you need to remember he admitted guilt. So that's going to be a huge thing to overcome for confirmation. But also, you may remember, I believe perhaps through all three of the presidential debates between Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton, Donald Trump always mentioned Petraeus, poor Petraeus. You know, he didn't even do a third of what you did, Hillary, and the man is ruined. And here you are. We don't even know where your 33,000 emails are and all the other criminalities that you've been involved in. And yet here you are standing as a presidential contender. And so Donald Trump constantly made his thoughts known about Hillary's criminality issues, illegal issues with the State Department during her time at the State Department. And he always made a point to reference her criminality in comparison to that of Petraeus. And now here we have it being leaked that Donald Trump met with retired General Petraeus as a potential contender for the State Department. What I believe Donald Trump is doing, you have to remember, this man is extremely intelligent and he's very strategic. Not only that, but he is, I think he can hold a grudge. I don't think he's someone you want to cross. And Petraeus' name went into the bucket right after Hillary Clinton stated that she's going to join Jill Stein and the selective states recounting of votes. And so I believe Donald Trump allowed Petraeus' name to be added to this bucket, this potential bucket, only as a nod to Hillary, only as a signal to be sent to Hillary that you need to go somewhere and sit down. You need to go somewhere and just quiet yourself down, because I will appoint a special prosecutor to investigate you after all. So that's what I believe Petraeus is. I believe Petraeus is not a serious consideration for Secretary of State. Instead, I believe he is really a signal to be sent on Hillary. And if you look over the past week, since Petraeus' name has been added to this bucket, you hear nothing but crickets on Hillary's side of the camp, right? You don't hear a lot of information coming out of her camp on her joining this recount or any of that. It's abnormally quiet on her side. So perhaps this strategic signal to Hillary has worked. So that's with the Secretary of Department. Also, last week, it was announced that for Department of Treasury, Stephen Mnuchin has been selected. So we will see that. Mnuchin is a former Goldman Sachs partner and Hollywood financier. Yeah, there's some scandals concerning him as well. And I mean, there's always going to be scandals with anyone coming out of Wall Street, especially Goldman Sachs. If you recall, they benefited significantly with the 2008 financial crisis, and he was a partner in Goldman Sachs. So I know that he received a tremendous amount of money. Plus, there are other scandals following him and all of his investment bankings and all of that. But it is to be expected. So do not get all wound up with that. We will learn more about him as time goes on. We already know that it was formally announced that the Department of Defense, Donald Trump has picked Marine General James Mad Dog Mattis. And I know a lot of you are very excited about Mad Dog Mattis. You know, like any good Marine general, they are always up for a fight. So I think we're going to hear a number of, we're going to see a number of articles coming out trying to paint Mad Dog Mattis as some fanatic, but that's just, I mean, I don't know. I've already mentioned to you guys during my 10 years in the military, let me tell you something. When you meet a Marine, there is tremendous deference. You don't mess around with the Marine. You recognize it takes something really special to be a Marine. They're not like the rest of the branches. Sometimes I think there's maybe a screw loose a little bit, but I've never met a Marine who was not always ready to go to battle. I mean, they were the sweetest. I enjoyed them. But it's something that you recognize when you're talking to a Marine. And I think with Mad Dog Mattis, I think Donald Trump is well equipped to be able to rein in Mad Dog Mattis. I don't think, I think that name means something, Mad Dog Mattis. I think he probably earned that nickname, but be wary, be assured there are going to be a number of articles coming out talking about him, so just be mindful of that. The Department of Defense, Mad Dog Mattis would be in charge over Army, Navy, and Air Force, in addition to Defense Intelligence Agency, NASA, Missile Defense Agency, headquartered at Pentagon. So Donald Trump seems to be very enamored with him, calling him the real deal. So that's going to be very interesting as well. Then we have the Department of Justice, Senator Jeff Sessions. Hoorah, we really like him. Loretta Lynch. What can we say? The Department of Justice is the highest law enforcement officer in the land. And I think it really says something when you have the highest law enforcement officer in the land, i.e. Loretta Lynch, Attorney General Loretta Lynch, pleading the fifth, taking the fifth in order to not incriminate herself. I think that says a lot about the type of person we currently have in this office. And I don't know if you guys have seen Senator Jeff Sessions in action when he's questioning people in those various congressional investigations, but the man is sensible, logic, and he cuts right through all of the baloney. So I think that's going to be very interesting to see that. We have several departments that are still open, so we'll be looking at that. The Department of Labor, Department of Commerce, USDA, the Department of Interior. We'll see. We also saw last week another announcement of a pick, Department of Health and Human Services, Representative Tom Price, a very studious man. Department of Health and Human Services, he's going to have a lot. That's going to be a very crucial role to play in overhauling / repealing / replacing Obamacare. Donald Trump has pledged to move very quickly on overhauling Obamacare. You guys are probably hearing a lot of conversation right now that Donald Trump is backpedaling on his promise to get rid of Obamacare. I don't believe that that's the case at all. I believe that, there are parts that Donald Trump favors, parts such as keeping provisions that allow young people to stay on their parents' health insurance plan a little bit longer. Also, he favors a part that prevents insurance companies from denying coverage to those with pre-existing conditions. Now, Price himself has said modifications will be similar to a 2015 measure that was resoundingly vetoed by President Obama, to include cutting Medicaid expansion subsidies, raising taxes, and things such as that. Price insists that coverage for those with pre-existing medical conditions can be kept without mandating or forcing all individuals to carry coverage or pay a penalty. I think this is going to bring up a really good conversation in our nation of what it means when you have a federal government that is now mandating and penalizing you for not doing something such as carry health insurance. I mean, are we a free nation or not? I obviously understand the need for coverage, and earnestly would encourage everyone to have insurance. And yet there are many that I personally know who do not have health insurance coverage, not because they cannot afford it, but because it's not a priority to them. And at what point does the government now come in to force people to do something? And then we also see with Obamacare, it's really not about health care. You know, I heard, I was at an event where Dr. Ben Carson was speaking, and he asked a question to the audience: do you really think the federal government is getting involved in the discussion of healthcare because they care about your health? And then he laughed. No, it's not about that. What's more important than your health? What do you have if you don't have health? And so it's not about the federal government caring about our health. It's about the federal government controlling people. And also Obamacare, as I have personally experienced looking at various friends who are probably on the edge of middle class, now being booted into a lower class financially because Obamacare has pushed them out of middle class into another group where they are forced to get on welfare. So I believe it's a tool as well to create a dependent society, because you see, tyrants need that, and we are surrounded by global tyrants. I think the Democratic Party is filled with would-be tyrants. And in order for you to be a tyrant, you need a large subservient group of people. And Obamacare, like so many other things like Black Lives Matter, even the homosexual agenda that is pushed on, that has been pushed on our nation, is a tool in the hands of would-be tyrants to legislate and to force people to behave a certain kind of way. Department of Housing and Urban Development, HUD, Dr. Ben Carlson's name is there in that box. Department of Transportation, we saw Elaine Childs may take the lead, and now she may take the lead in Trump's plans to rebuild the United States infrastructure. We heard Donald Trump speak a tremendous amount about the infrastructure of America in comparison to other nations, Switzerland, China, Japan, and talking about the rebuilding of roads, bridges, airports, all of which will fall under the Department of Transportation, and specifically under Elaine Childs. And, Trump has already called for a $1 trillion infrastructure spending over the next 10 years to rebuild our infrastructure. Dot is also over the pipelines. You guys remember our conversations a couple of years ago about the Keystone Pipeline. So she has a lot that will be falling under her, and I don't think you can have a newbie in that spot, because I know, many of us take issue with the fact that she is the wife of the Republican Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell. I know we all take some issues with that, but I think she brings experience in navigating the federal department, the federal government, and I think you're going to need that that understanding of negotiation, that understanding of how these people think. And you can't have a newbie just walking in there thinking, okay, well, because I'm here and I have this position, you're going to have to listen to me and do what I say do. That's not how government works. That's not how even your office politics work. It's not about what you know. It's about who you know. It's about what kind of relationships you have with who you know. And I think that's going to be so I think her appointment is a strategic one. Let me also just say right now, because one of the main slogans of Donald Trump towards the end of the presidential campaign was drain the swamp. And I think it's interesting to note that almost half of the appointments he have made are to those who are actually a part of the swamp. But again, I think, again, we have to be strategic and looking at who he is appointing, and the positions these people are being placed in. I don't believe you can have a newbie, an outside person. Nunchin, who has been appointed for Department of Treasury, he is a newbie as far as government is concerned. He doesn't have any government experience, and I think that that's fine for that position. I think that's going to be good in that position, actually, because one of the primary issues there, according to Donald Trump, is naming China as a currency manipulator. And I think you're going to need someone who understands how that all works. I don't think you need a politician in that position. I think that's one of the issues in America right now. We have too many politicians in positions, and all they know how to do is bargain and connive instead of really understanding the economics behind things. But for the Department of Transportation and several others where we see people who are actually who have actually made their home in the swamp, yes, he's making those appointments to them. But I think there's strategy behind it. So let's just, all of this will be born true. The last department I'm going to talk about is the Department of Education. We have Betsy DeVos. Now, this is one for every parent, for every American who understands the role education plays in any society, having an informed populace. This is a very important position. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about Betsy DeVos at a later time. But let me just talk about where we stand as a nation in our education department. We are watching the effects of liberal education play out right in front of us. Look at these rioters. Yeah, liberal education. I just saw last week, now we have universities bringing in puppy rooms, rooms filled with puppies on university campuses that allows these liberal snowflakes who have been offended because Donald Trump is in office. It allows them to go in and cuddle with these puppies so that they can feel better about themselves. Yeah, liberal education, right? Liberal education where, how they said love trumps hate. It's more like emotions trump facts, right? It's all about our emotions. It's all about how I feel about something. I think, I believe, and people honestly believe it in our nation that all opinions are equal. I do not believe all opinions are equal. I believe some opinions are more studied, more researched than other opinions. I believe most people's opinions are derived from them just rolling out of bed and just, they have some air in their lungs and so they can make sounds, and they think that their opinions are just as valid as someone's opinion who has spent an exuberant amount of time researching, studying, meditating, thinking, connecting the dots. But that's the culture in which we live in, where everyone can just turn on a camera and become a superstar. And so, I was equating that to someone not too long ago about if you go into a cardiologist's office and he tells you something about your heart, he gives you his opinion. What makes his opinion about your heart different than your opinion? Both are opinions, but what is the defining difference? It's because his opinion is based on years of study, based on years of education and thinking and understanding the issue and understanding the choices, right? That's the difference. How ignorant would one be to go in to a cardiologist? He gives you his opinion about the condition of your heart, and then you stand there with your degree in English and say, I disagree with you. This is my opinion. How ignorant would that be? It's the same way. I mean, you can apply that same ignorance when it comes to things of politics. We can all enunciate an opinion, but all opinions are not valid, and I think that's very important. But these little snowflakes, oh no, they think their emotions trump logic and facts, and it doesn't. But listen to this. As you guys all know, America spends the most money per child on education relative to all other nations. Per child, America spends roughly $115,000 versus $53,000 per child that is spent in Slovak Republic. But our overall results, we don't rank in the global top 20 nations. We're not even in the top 20 nations. And yet we spend the absolute most on education per child. In fact, we spend $115,000. Slovak Republic spends $53,000 per child, and we are right there with them. We're in between Lithuania and Slovak and Republic, and we spend almost double we spend double of what they spend on children, and we're down there with them. In fact, we rank individually on an individual subject basis. We rank number 29 in math, number 19 in reading, and number 22 in science. And this is a part of the performance and international student assessment of students who are age 15. Looking at the information was collected among 65 different countries. Overall, as I've said, we're between Lithuania and Slovak Republic, and we spend double that of Slovak Republic. The top overall performers, mostly Asian countries, to include cities, to include Shanghai, Hong Kong, Taiwan, South Korea, Japan, Switzerland, Netherlands, Estonia. In math, Shanghai students age 15 is the equivalent of over 2 years of formal schooling ahead of students in Massachusetts. And as you know, Massachusetts is a strong performing U.S. school. And yet we don't understand what's going on. We don't understand the overhaul. This particular results came out in 2013. The race to the top that ushered in Common Core had been in place since 2008, 2009. So this department, the Department of Education, is a very vital one. There's a reason why we are so far behind. We're not even in the top 20 of schools. And so there's a reason for that. Guys, this has been your update. I hope it's been helpful. Please let me know what your thoughts are, where you want me to look and investigate, and I will do just that. Share, subscribe to our YouTube page, and God bless. Talk to you soon. Bye.